this morning. Bright and early, the sun is shining, and Celtic are still top of the league, clear by the team in third and by 6 points. Obviously, still got Aberdeen hot on our tails. Aberdeen are hot on our tails with the fact that Celtic do have that massive goal difference, which will hold us well going into the rest of the season. I think it's important to keep the goal difference going as much as possible, and obviously it'll be great for Aberdeen to keep their run going as much as possible. And I think that Aberdeen will extend their lead of the third position club to 9 points, and that will also increase Celtic's lead. But it's all good. There's a lot to talk about this morning. I'll just move that back up there. It seems to be doing well. Get rid of the league business. It is all eyes turned to the Champions League. Yep, after a little break from the Champions League, we're back this week, and some fans will be looking forward to it, and some fans won't be looking forward to it after the result in Dortmund. Celtic do travel to Italy tomorrow, and it's going to be a game and a half, isn't it? To be fair, and to be honest, I think that the most Celtic can realistically hope for, and if you don't look through, I don't think anyone's going to look through green-tinted spectacles to this one now, after the crazy scorelines that everyone thought that we were going to get in Germany. People were saying that Celtic were going to win 4-0 in Germany and stuff, but I think the fact that they did win at the weekend also, they're sitting in about 7th position, but 6th position I think is in the league. Dortmund are sitting in 7th in their respective league. I think it's the best that Celtic can realistically hope for is a draw in Italy. Will Celtic be able to do any more? Well, Kyogo wants to go toe-to-toe. Yes, he wants to go toe-to-toe with the best. Should we even just talk about it, or should we just I think that the fact that Kyogo wants to go toe-to-toe with them says a lot about Kyogo. And after his goal at the weekend, that did make him the top goal scorer at Celtic with 5 goals. I'm sure that's because Callum McGregor was on 4. But anyway, Kyogo Furiashi says he's ready to escape the best man markers in the world. Yep, he's ready to escape the best man markers in the world, says Kyogo, and outstrip Atlanta's man-marking ability and ability to close down other teams and their ability to suffocate other teams. And it was that style of play that helped them win the Europa League last season. But some Celtic fans think they will be able to go to Italy and get some kind of result. For me, a draw is a result. We'll talk about it more this evening's video, 8 p.m. Celtic part-time. There will be an update video this afternoon. Let's jump into the comment section first of all to see who's all in. There's not many people in at this time in the morning, but it's good just to get in and get the videos started for the day. Morning Baz says Dennis Donnelly, Stephen Johnson's in the house, Simon Ireland's in the house. A lot of people will be on the school run and going to work and stuff. He's very fast and nippy. He's very fast and nippy, says Stephen Donnelly. Hail, hail, Baz, and everyone says Grace T. When we look at the fact that, when you look at the chances that Celtic missed at the weekend, I think that's what Celtic need to take a little bit of. They need to think about how we're going to score more goals, ultimately. I'll just get the stats back up. I mean, we had 32 shots on goal, and only 7 were on target. This is something that's been wrong with Celtic since before the start of the season. It's something that was wrong with Celtic last season. Brendan Rodgers did say that we needed to be more clinical, remember, in the final third. It was a comment that he repeated again and again and again at the first half, right up until about December last year. He repeated the fact that Celtic need to be more clinical in the final third. And he's not coming out and say that this season yet, but he'll look at the stats and he'll say 32 shots, only 7 on target. Only 7 on target. I mean, these guys practice this week in, week out, and it's disheartening. It's disheartening that we're not getting as many on shots. I mean, we look at the possession that we had 74% possession against Aberdeen. We had way more passes. We had 693 passes, and they only had 252 passes, Aberdeen. But they were more clinical. They were more clinical with their shots on target. They only had 8 shots the whole game, but they had 4 shots on target. And for me, Celtic, if we get our shots on target, there's more chances you score, and there's more goals that can be scored. It is something that Kyogo and co need to work on. Predominantly Kyogo, because he seems to have lost that fluency he had in his shooting a few years ago, where basically everything he could touch almost went into the back of the net. And I think that's more than likely the reason that there hasn't been any big bids came in for Kyogo. There was the fleeting thing that he may go to Man City at the transfer window, just gone, but he was going to go there as a winger. They wanted them there as a winger, not as a striker. So it tells you everything that you need to know about what Man City think of Kyogo, and obviously his pace. Anyway, Magnus is in the comments this morning, says it'll be a tough game. Put Ida up front with Kyogo, Morning Baz and the Troops. Would you go with 2 up front against them? You know what the Italians are like. They're very good at defending, and they will sit back and try and hit us on the break. Don't be surprised if Celtic actually get quite a lot of the ball in Italy. But I'm not too sure how it's going to go. Like I say, if we can get a draw in Italy, I'll be happy with that. And I think the team would be happy with that. But can we go that little bit further? I understand that they do have some injury worries. I'm not even going to look into that too far. I'm not going to look into that at all. I mean, any top team in the Champions League, and the fact that where they are sitting in the Champions League, they're in a far, far better position than Celtic. They're in a far better position than Celtic. They are only on 4 points. So let that be said. I mean, they drew their first game, and then they won their second game. So, I mean, there could be something in it. I mean, Celtic won their first game and then they lost their second game. It was an absolute gubbin. So they are sitting a lot further up the table than us. They're sitting 9 places in front of us. Celtic really need to try and get something out of the remaining games. This game, listen, they won the Europa. It's not a bad team that wins the Europa Cup, is it? Jim's in the house this morning. Garrett is in the house. Should have put it to bed on Saturday. Yeah, we should have put it to bed. And when you look at it, definitely when you look at the stats, the stats show that there's something not right with the strikers and people having shots on goal. Whether it be Aberdeen defending a bit better, but if you're trying to take a shot, you've got to hit the target. It's as simple as that. And we can bemoan the fact that we didn't hit the target as much as what we'd like to, but we move on to this game and the fact that Kyogo is excited of the prospect of overcoming Atalanta's tight system, and he said that he's looking forward to such a defensive style of play. Obviously, I'll try and enjoy it and see how we can perform against this kind of team in Europe. He says, I will have chances, even though we play through a tough opponent, said Kyogo. He says, I need to be prepared to put the balls into the back of the net, or at least try and get shots on target. That's what we've just been talking about. I think there's going to be a lot of the game where Celtic fans are going to be hiding behind the sofa. And then there's going to be moments that you're thinking, can we do it? Can we do it? And we all want Celtic to win the game. I mean, but just putting a bit realistic head on this morning, I think the best that we can hope for. And especially after the performance against the second half against Aberdeen. I mean, Aberdeen were absolutely dogged in defence. And if that's anything to go by, I mean, we're not going to have the possession that we had against Aberdeen. I can't see that at all. When they will be a defensive display by the Italians, and we know how Italians like to go down pretty easy as well. So, we'll just have to wait and see how the game transpires on Wednesday. But we need to get excited about it because there's a lot of guys heading over, and they're starting to head over this morning. I see. James says, "Morning, Baz, and hail. The best we can look for is a draw." Yes, that's what I'm going for. Anything more than a draw, and we'll be ecstatic. There's that little bit of me thinking that they lost and they drew their first game in the Champions League, which is always it gives you a little bit of hope more than anything. It does give you a little bit of hope more than anything. They won 2-0 yesterday. They scored in the 7th minute and the 47th minute. If we look at the stats from that game, let's see if we can get the stats. The stats that they had, it's interesting. They only had 58% possession. They had 16 shots on target. Okay, so they had 16 shots on target. No, they had 7 shots on target. They had 16 shots in total, sorry. They had 7 shots on target, which is not far off a 50% return for shots on target. So Celtic need to think about that. It's a bit like the Aberdeen game. Possession, they had 58% possession against Celtic's 72% possession against Aberdeen. The passes, this is where it gets interesting because they're not a high passing team. Which is strange, but then again, it's weird. They had 503 passes. The pass accuracy was 82%. They had 6 fouls, 1 yellow card, and they were offside twice. They had 5 corners. That does leave them sitting 6th in the league on 13 points. Over the last 5 games, they've lost 1, they've drawn 1, and they've won 3. Not in that order, but that's the ones that they have. That's what their run has been. Our run has been slightly better, so we'll get a bit more excited, I'm sure, as time gets closer. But I have said before that this is going to be one of the hardest games that we'll play. That and the Dortmund game is the 2 hardest games that we've got in the group. Can Celtic take anything from it? I'm not too sure. The Italians don't play fair. Yes, we know that, Grace T. They don't play fair at all. We can go all the way back to Martin O'Neill's time at Celtic and when we played against Juventus. And yes, it was a long time ago if you remember the Martin O'Neill game against Juventus. Let's just say we should have done that a bit better, but it was what it is. What it is. It's football. Desmond says hopefully Kyogo sticks to his comments. Kyogo really needs to be more prolific but then there is the flip side of the coin. If Kyogo becomes more prolific and a striker that starts banging in 30-40 goals a season again, it means that clubs are going to come knocking for him. Kyogo has been at the club a good few years now, and he is on, I think he's got about a 3-year deal left on his contract. You never know, Celtic might decide this summer if Kyogo does hit the heights that he can and an offer comes in, Celtic might think, yeah, it's maybe time for Kyogo to go. Brendan to get someone else in. But as it stands just now, we only have the 2 strikers. And Dyson as the backup third choice striker, which I'm not overly enamoured with. I mean, Brendan Rodgers was on record saying in the summer, that he wanted 2 strikers in this summer. That's what he did say right at the start. You can go back and check Celtic TV. He did say that he wanted in 2 strikers. The further the transfer window went on, it was becoming more apparent that we weren't going to get the 2 strikers in. He was asked the last week of the transfer window, do you think you're going to get the second striker in that you wanted? That one came back to bite him on the bum, as they say. And Brendan said, no, I don't think that we're going to get another striker in this late in the window. I'm happy with the 2 that we've got, having paid over the odds for Adam Ida. And let's all admit, we paid over the odds for Adam Ida because Norwich had us over a barrel at this time. As soon as Kyogo goes down, and that's another thing, you know, Kyogo still has that reoccurrence of the dislocated shoulder. He's not had it much this season, but when it happened right at the beginning of the season, Celtic were quick enough in spending the cash to get Adam Ida in. It's amazing how quick it happened, Brendan Rodgers said. He was taken aback by how quick it happened within the space of 24 hours. And I think that was a little bit dig at the board, hence the reason that he has brought in and helped, well, along with Celtic, obviously brought in Tisdale to help Brendan out with the board members. You've got to remember the top board member just now, the CEO, Michael Nicholson, is basically cut the same cloth as, well, some say he's the puppet for Peter Lawwell. But anyway, we're not going to get into that today. Lorna Gallagher's in the house. Garrett's in the house. Sean's in the house. James is in the house. He said that the best we can look for is a draw. Frank is in the house also. Carly's in. Danny says, I'm going to say, well, I'm just going to say, like, yep. Kaiser is in the house also. Twitter memes are hilarious. There's a lot of Twitter nonsense going around last night after the score for Kilmarnock. Anne Wood said, I think the result on Saturday was fair, the way they came back from 2-0 down. We gave the lead away. A draw was not a terrible result. I don't think it was a terrible result, Anne. I think it was the manner and the amount of shots on off target that we had. And I think that's what Brendan Rodgers was angry at. And it's like I've said before, he's commented about it previously, Brendan Rodgers, saying that the final third, and he's basically means shooting. It's like, get your shooting boots on. It wouldn't surprise me if Brendan Rodgers was still looking and actively searching for the next striker that's going to come to Celtic. And in fact, you know that Brendan will be. He'll be looking to see what strikers are out there in Europe. I don't think it'll go further afield than European football, Brendan, for our next striker. Although Kyogo's come in and been absolutely fantastic for us. I think at the European stage, he just doesn't cut it. Doesn't cut the mustard, Kyogo, in the European stage. And I think that's concerning for Brendan Rodgers and predominantly the backroom staff. But Kyogo is full of confidence, and he reckons that he can unshackle the attentions of one of the best defensive teams in Europe, allegedly. Anyway, Celtic know that they have to improve their form away in the Champions League after being, would you say, humiliated by Dortmund? Or were Dortmund just rampant and Celtic were just caught like rabbits in the headlights? And there's one thing for sure, the fact that Cameron Carter-Vickers, and we're going back to this Cameron Carter-Vickers thing, this is another situation that I think Brendan Rodgers will be looking at. I think when it comes to the Champions League, and if Celtic have any aspiration to go into this league format on a yearly basis and try and finish above 24th, because that's what you need to do to get through to the next round of the playoff games, which is just the 2 games, and then you're through to the last 16. I think that Brendan Rodgers will know that we need better defenders. In Dortmund, we had Liam Scales and Austin Trusty. I think, being honest, I think Trusty was brought in to push Scales on and try and make Scales better. It's unfortunate again that we're at a situation where Cameron Carter-Vickers is once again not available for the Champions League, and that won't have gone amiss with Brendan Rodgers. The fact that he's been injury prone at this time of the season, and Celtic, any Celtic manager will tell you, it's different being at Celtic than any other team in Europe, because all your important games come at this time of the year. Whether it be trying to qualify for the Champions League. We're lucky enough just now that we've managed to walk straight into the Champions League without qualifying. We all know how much Celtic struggle when it comes to qualification matches in the Champions League, and it doesn't help the coefficient too well. So going forward, I definitely think that Brendan Rodgers will sit down in private with Paul Tisdale and say, look, this is the, and Brendan Rodgers alluded to it. He said, we've had lots of chats over the summer and lots of chats in the background that will never be made public. They'll never be made public, but you can just imagine what they are, and especially after the thumping in Dortmund. They were sat and looked at that and went, right, we really need 2 mountains, 2 man mountains, 2 Bobo Baldis, if you like, at the back. You know what, a Bobo Baldi and a Virgil van Dijk. If we can unearth another 2 players like that at the back, so we become a solid team again, and we don't do silly mistakes. I think that's something that those 2 would have had conversations about. It's a position that you need players that are fit at this time of year. There's no point in we're just if we keep, and I'm not saying get rid of Cameron Carter-Vickers before people start. Brendan Rodgers will sit and they'll look at the stats, and the stats don't lie. The fact that we need someone in that is strong and solid, and we have to have a partnership. Your backs, two centre backs, are generally two players that see out 90 minutes of a game every game and can play the whole season, and that's the basis of your team. And I think that Brendan will be speaking about that, because the fact that we're not putting the goals away, when it comes to Europe, we need to be a lot more solid, that's for sure. Stephen says the staff room cup of tea. He's in the staff room having a cup of tea. Carly says, I knew the zombies would bottle it yesterday. Yep, he did say that. Ian Corbett says, morning Baz. Moby says, how poor are the Sevco? Absolutely terrible. And it was good because the other channel done really well at it, which I'm happy about, which is really good. 4-0 up in 90 minutes, and I'm relaxed. Carly thinks we're going to go 4-0 up against the Italians. Don't start with the silly stuff, Carly, this morning. I think the best that we're going to get is a draw in Italy. Garrett says, seemed a bit panicky with shots the last 15 minutes. I don't mind them shooting from range, but not the last few minutes. We don't need to walk the ball into the net all the time. This is true. And Celtic trying to play the perfect football, and I think that's something that comes back to the training pitch. The 1-2 passes and trying to get it into the back of the net in their box, because they know the team's going to be sitting back. What happened to good old James Forrest that used to take shots for the edge of the box, come in for the wing, take a shot for the edge of the box, and it was in the box and it was in the back of the net? I think that we're missing those types of games. And it was funny because I was looking at an old selection of Larsson videos over the weekend, and I'm going to say it would be difficult for Henrik Larsson to score the amount of goals that he did for Celtic in the modern game, because he wouldn't have the room. Henrik Larsson played at Celtic at a time where there wasn't the low block. They didn't have the best part of 10 men of the opponents in the box. A lot of Celtic's goals with Henrik Larsson were on the break. They come from a counter-attacking moves. And I just think that the modern game, we give teams in Scotland far too much time, especially when the ball's up in our box and we get it in our half, we get it back off them. There doesn't seem to be the urgency and speed at Celtic right now, even though we have the players. And when we're doing it at the beginning of the season, we seem to have lost that little bit of urgency in our play, the one-touch pass. I mean, we were playing some fantastic football at the beginning of the season, and I think that's what's wrong. The one-touch pass has disappeared. But we're all praising Brendan Rodgers and Celtic for the speed of play and the adaptability of the team to totally change the way it was playing this season. Have teams cottoned onto it and just went, do you know what, as soon as they get the ball, and maybe people have been trained that, and it's like as soon as Celtic get the ball, just get back. Don't try and tackle them in their half. Don't try and do anything fancy in their half. Just get right back and get into a defensive position, because they're going to come coming at you. And if you don't do that, they're going to hit you quick and they're going to be gone. And before you know it, it'll be a goal for Celtic. And maybe that's what's really going on in Scottish football. Martin says, good morning, Baz. And Moby says, don't remember a time where Sevco was as bad as this. Look back to the 1980s. Look back to the early 1980s before David Murray came in. You'll see there was time during the 80s that the old Rangers finished 6th in the league. It's never spoken about in Scottish football. Everyone thinks that Rangers just have been absolutely fantastic from the 1990s onwards. They weren't. The 1990s was bought success. It was paid for success. We all know that. But people will say in the modern day, look, Celtic are doing the exact same thing. We're paying for our success. And we're outspending everyone in the league. We have the money to do it. But what we are doing is we're doing it with a solid business foundation. And we're not letting them get the chance to do what they did before, which was cheat their way to the top of the table. Anyway, Kaiser said the hips don't lie. Yeah, the hips don't lie. That was the goal from Dyson Maida that went in, wasn't it? That one. Karma is beautiful. Desmond Donald says, like that Kilmarnock left back yesterday. I liked the Kilmarnock left back. It could be interesting because we've got Greg Taylor from Kilmarnock. How long does Philippe need for the rebuild? As long as he likes, says Grace T. Well, he's on a contract until 2028. What madman give him a contract to 2028? That's what I want to know. But keep him there as long as possible. And the way that they're obviously looking at it is, look, it took Stevie G 3 years. Will they give this manager 3 years? Not a chance. Not a chance. Jim says he's not looking forward to the game on Wednesday night, the Celtic and the Atalanta Celtic game, even though Kyogo wants to go toe-to-toe. And he's been talking about the fact that losing their 100% domestic record to Aberdeen, the draw was not the ideal build-up for the trip, although winning and scoring goals lifts confidence. And Kyogo says such setback can also fire the team up to deliver a better display against the Italians. Oh no, you're talking on the pitch, Kyogo. Don't start your nonsense about anything that's going to happen. Just do your talking on the pitch and score goals, wee man. He says, I think it's right that we kept showing ourselves on the pitch. So obviously we wanted to win the game. It was a difficult match. We ended up with a draw. We just have to focus on the next match, said Kyogo. It's disappointing in terms of not taking the 3 points, but in the grand scheme of things, we are fine. We'll get the points back, said Kyogo. We will get the points back. We'll go in front, and we always know the way that Celtic go. Let us get to Christmas, and then once there's no break this winter, so let us get to Christmas, and it's always after the New Year game that Celtic generally go on a run, because you know that you're over the hump of the season. And the way that they look at it, and Brendan Rodgers and the backroom staff look at it, is blocks of games. So they'll know exactly, you've got this block, you've got certain blocks of games, and you'll know what games you need to win. And the closer that we get to the end of the season, it all becomes about making Celtic Park a complete fortress again. And it's the time that the fans come alive. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the fans over the next couple of weeks after the statement by Celtic last week. That hasn't gone away, remember. So even though all the excitement about the fact that they drop points, remember it is Monday morning, and the people inside Celtic will be sitting down and getting together, and they will be talking about certain sections of the fans and how they're going to deal with that going forward. Because Celtic will not want anything to happen in Italy with regards to pyro. Because if it does, our fans are basically going to get banned for the next game. And if Brendan Rodgers, we don't need to go over the interview that he gave on Friday, talking about, look, if you're going to let pyrotechnics off, fireworks off in the ground, you're not only stopping yourself from going to future matches, but you're stopping a lot of other people. And he said it was quite selfish, but let's just hope it doesn't happen for the sake of all fans. We spend within the law, unlike the EBT bar stewards, says Kaiser. This is so. Alice says Sevco got to the final, and we can beat them. Sevco got to the final, and we can beat them. Yeah, they got to the final of... I don't even want to talk about them. Sean says, for every 2 points Celtic drop, we'll drop 3, says Philip Clement. I thought Scales had a decent game. We had a decent chance, and we have a decent chance in Italy. Our wingers need to be on top form and put the pedal on the metal, says Garrett. The Italians are very, very good. Simon, I'll get it up on the community tab later on today. Because there's a couple of few designs I need to change with it. So I'll get that up later today for you, Simon. Just reading your comment. Talking about skills in Italy, the Italians, Atalanta, are one of the best teams for nullifying the way that opposing teams play. By doing that, they're going to defend at the front. They're going to do what Celtic try and do in our league, is push teams back and stop them from playing, whilst not being too fancy about it and being really defensive themselves. So they are going to defend high up the park. They're not going to be sitting back on their own box. They're going to sit right up on top of the Celtic players. They're going to be man-marking the likes of Kyogo. I think they're going to man-mark our wingers, and they're definitely going to man-mark Callum McGregor. So don't bemoan the fact that Callum McGregor seems to be having a quiet game. They're specialists in man-marking teams out of games, and it'll nullify, it'll make it a boring game. They don't seem to be a team that has a lot of high-scoring games. So it's not going to be it's either going to one or two ways. It's going to be a cracking game of football to watch, or you're going to be sitting at the end of the game and going, typical dirty cheating Italians. I want to just see a good game of football. Anyway, that was Garrett who said that he reckons that Scales could have a good game and the wingers need to be on top form. Carly says the Green Brigade won't listen. They are alone to themselves. Garrett says we need the Green Brigade for the atmosphere. We do that, and we do need them. And we need them at Celtic Park, and we need them in Europe. It's as simple as that. We need them at the games. I would rather have them at the games than not at the games. And let that be said. I mean, I think that what they bring to Celtic is absolutely brilliant, and we need them for Champions League nights. We definitely need them for Champions League nights, and I don't want the board to go down the route of precautionary. And what they did last season and by banning the Green Brigade, because you know that the board are very trigger happy when it comes to banning the group like that. I've done it many times in the past, and I don't want to see it happening because I think it has the adverse effect. So let's hope that the board aren't too hasty, to say the least. But anyway, we move on. Joseph says, Baz, semi-final coming up. We need to improve. Bigger pitch should help Celtic. Just turn up this time. I think Celtic can do it in Italy. Joseph, the best we're going to get is a draw. Just have that mindset that the best that we can do is a draw. Anything else will be a complete bonus. I think that's the best way to look at this game. If people start coming in the chat and going, we're going to win 4-0 in Italy, you need to ask yourself, where are you getting those crazy predictions from? Because Aberdeen played such a defensive manner, and our shots on target against the shots in total were just terrible. For having 32 shots altogether and only having 7 on target is woeful. So I don't see how we're going to beat a defensive-minded, really organised Italian team when we can't beat Aberdeen. Let that be said. We need a better way to express ourselves without pyros. Well, we used to have a better way. I mean, we used to just sing, and the whole stadium used to sing. And I know it's a modern day thing, and I don't want to get this into a conversation about this morning, but I know it is a modern day thing, and it's bragging rights or whatever. It needs to be done in a controlled manner. I think just they do it, they know the risk, and they know ultimately. And especially if they're trying, I mean, they put out a leaflet at the weekend talking about the fact that they want to get a Celtic end. One of the things that the board are going to sit and think about is, we give you a Celtic end. You let off fireworks in a Champions League game, and then that whole section gets shut down for a number of games. Celtic will not want to go into the Champions League, and it's fine where they are just now, the Green Brigade in the North Curve, in that little corner, and they can cover that up and they can do whatever, and they can put other fans in there. But when it comes to a complete Celtic end, and I understand why the Green Brigade want it, and it's like they feel it's their true purpose in life to create a better atmosphere, and having been on the go for 18 years now, they think they've outgrown that corner. I think, in all honesty, I think that they need to get the top half of that corner in tune with the bottom half, because there's too many times during games that it's only the bottom half of the standing section that's singing and jumping about. There's a lot of the games where the top half are just doing their own thing. And could you imagine that in the standing section? Anyway, it is what it is. We're not here to talk about the Green Brigade or the standing section or the struggles that may or may not be happening with inside Celtic as we speak. Danny says, you know me, big man, the mighty Celtic into this rotten mob. One of my favourite player, Cameron Carter-Vickers, be fit. Kyogo will score the first goal in Italy. If Cameron Carter-Vickers is fit, do you play him over Austin Trusty and get him back beside? And the thing is as well, can he last the 90 minutes? That's the big thing. One crazy prediction that we're going to get a ban for setting. One crazy prediction that we won't get is a ban for setting off pyros. We won't get a ban. I'm hoping we don't. I'm dreading that hopefully don't have to watch from behind my sofa. I don't think we will have to watch from behind our sofa because the Italians aren't a fast attacking team. Really. Hopefully. They just defend better. Good morning, Stephen. Kaiser says, he's doing a midweek drink along. Or cry along, it may be, Baz. Kaiser, I might actually come and join you for that one, just for a laugh. I'll see what happens. I can't be bothered going out on Wednesday night for it. Usually go to the pub to watch it, but it's too difficult to then do a live after the game, and I think it'll be an important live after the game. Play Trusty left back, Baz. Play Trusty left back. Oh, over the young Alex Baye. Would you play? Here's one for you, Kaiser. Does Liam Scales have the pace to be a left back? Does he have the pace? That's a serious question. Does he have the pace to be a left back? That's my only worry, because he does like to go up the park too much. Let's hope we're pleasantly surprised on Wednesday, says Lorna. Desmond says, not a bad shout, Kaiser playing the one and only Liam Scales at left back. Steven says, hail guys from Holland. He's heading to Italy soon. Heading to Italy for the game. That's one of the games that I was thinking about going to, but I think that'll be a tasty game. There'll be a lot of tasty things going on in Italy, because they don't like the fact that we have close connections to Napoli. And Napoli are currently sitting top of the league. So, yeah. They don't like the fact that we have very close connections with Napoli. And Napoli are currently top of the league. And I know a lot of mates that go over to Napoli games. Celtic fans that do go over to watch Napoli. And they've had a strong connection for many years. Anyway, drink along is a cracking Baz banter. It's fierce. I bet the banter is fierce. I sat at the Jock Steed stand, and the most important game, you could hear a pin drop. All the fans need to find their voice. So Garrett says he sits in the Jock Steed stand, and the most important game, you could hear a pint drop, or maybe even a pin drop. The fans need to find their voice. They do need to find their voice, and I think that's, I mean, when you look back at Celtic Park 20 years ago, before the inception of the Green Brigade, it was a place where the fans all sang together. I mean, it was a fortress. The noise was unbelievable for 90 minutes. There was a lot of spells where it wasn't, but there was a lot of spells where there was a lot of singing going on from all around the stadium. And I think that due to the prominence of the rise of the Green Brigade in the north, well, not just the North Curve, but when it was even at the top half, just that little section in 111, I think the rise of the prominence of that little group of fans to make as much noise as they did, and then the introduction of the drums was completely new to Celtic Park. And as fans have grown older, you know, they want to just sit and enjoy the game. The game itself has changed. Trying to get motivated and standing up and sing when a team is sitting back for the best part of 80 minutes. I mean, gone are the days. If you go and watch at some point in the next couple of days some old Celtic videos with Henrik Larsson, and apart from corners where Henrik Larsson could score a cracking header or free kicks from outside the box, a lot of the Celtic goals were on an attack. They were on a counter-attack. That doesn't happen so much. We don't... modern teams, as soon as they lose the ball in Celtic box, in Celtic half, they don't try and defend from the front. They don't try to defend right up in front of us, because they know it only takes one pass and then they're all out of position. So as soon as they lose the ball, they'll start trooping back the way over their own half and get into their defensive positions. And I just think that's what's killing the modern game. Henrik Larsson would never have scored the amount of goals he did. And I'm going to even say, even in more modern times, Lee Griffiths never had to put up with as much defensive nonsense as what goes on since, and you've got to say it, since Brendan Rodgers came to Celtic. Since Brendan Rodgers came to Celtic, the style of play that teams have put out across the SPFL as a whole, and I'm talking going back to his first time at Celtic, they've decided to be more defensive when it comes to playing Celtic. They know that they can't just go and have a go at Celtic, which teams do, but then they get ripped open. Aberdeen didn't really... They tried to hit us on the break and they did it well. And they defended really, really well. Also, Kaiser says Liam doesn't have the pace to be inverted, just be solid like Scales Trusty. The way that we play though, Kaiser, I don't think that you would be going to a flat back four then, which would mean that, I mean, we don't really play that system. You would have to play a 4-4-2 for that to work really well, because then you would have a space in the midfield that people would target, and they would still target that left back area. Lorna Gallagher says Henrik is doing a night in the Armadillo in November. Hopefully get tickets for that. Desmond Donna says hopefully we don't try parking the bus and our way to get early goal and unsettling their back three. I like the Green Brigade, however, stick to drums and tiffos. Eric says good morning to all. Kaiser says team parked the bus. Aberdeen game was fantastic. Yep. Lorna says Desmond Donna says that the tickets are out today. Right, let me see what other Celtic news is kicking about this morning, since the Italians have been talking about the Celtic game after their victory at the weekend. He reckons the manager reckons that they must take Celtic seriously on Wednesday, despite the 7-1 mauling by Borussia Dortmund in matchday 2. He reckons that, he reckons after the 2-2 draw with Aberdeen at the weekend, Celtic will know that they need to up their performance to take anything from the game on Wednesday. Anyway, I've got an appointment at 11 o'clock. It's about 10:30 here. Big shout out to Eric. Good morning all. Big shout out to Kaiser. Big shout out to Desmond. Jed Johnson's in the house. A draw is realistic result, but I found football isn't what it used to be years ago. But still a better league than ours. Yes, it is that. Big shout out to Lorna Gallagher, Stephen, Carly, Garrett, Joseph, Ian, and everyone else that's in the chat. Lorna Gallagher, Ian, and everyone else. Time for me to go. Have a fantastic day. I will be back around about 4:35 o'clock Celtic part time for a quick half hour live, and then we'll go back to the hour live at 8 p.m. Celtic part time, where we can talk about the aftermath of the game at the weekend, and looking forward to the game on Wednesday night as we talk about that once more. And on that note,